Jabari's heart sank. He had long imagined choosing a wife based on love, not by tradition. The thought of being forced into a marriage, especially one dictated by such a peculiar rule, filled him with dread. Jabari's mind immediately turned to Nia, a woman he had admired for her grace and beauty. In the heart of a small African village, Jabari, a strong and quiet young man, was on the verge of stepping into his father's shoes as the next chief. He had always respected tradition and had prepared for the role his entire life. One day, the village elders called him to a meeting. Their faces were grave as they reminded him of the ancient rule that the next chief must marry the fattest woman in the village. Jabari's heart sank. He had long imagined choosing a wife based on love, not by tradition. The thought of being forced into a marriage, especially one dictated by such a peculiar rule, filled him with dread. Jabari's mind immediately turned to Nia, a woman he had admired for her grace and beauty. Nia was slender, elegant, and seemed to be the perfect match for him. However, the elders were firm. The rule could not be broken. Jabari had to marry Abba, the woman considered to be the fattest in the village. He had never paid much attention to Abba before, though he knew she was well liked by many. He couldn't imagine himself falling in love with her, but tradition was tradition, and Jabari found himself trapped between duty and desire. Abba was known across the village for her kindness and wisdom. She was larger than any other woman in the village, but her size never diminished her spirit. While many mocked her appearance, she carried herself with grace and dignity. Secretly, Abba had always harbored feelings for Jabari, though she never believed he would see her as anything more than the fattest woman in the village. When Abba learned of the elders' decision, she was torn. A part of her was thrilled at the idea of marrying Jabari, the man she admired, but she also knew the marriage wouldn't be born of love, at least not from his side. Jabari would see her as nothing more than a ticket to becoming the chief. With a heavy heart, Abba prepared herself for the inevitable marriage, hoping that in time, Jabari might see her for who she truly was, beyond her physical appearance. Jabari couldn't shake the burden of the decision weighing on his mind. He sought solace in his best friend Kwame, hoping for advice. Kwame, however, was pragmatic. Tradition is the foundation of our village, Jabari. The elders wouldn't steer you wrong. Abba is a good woman, he said, but Jabari couldn't help but feel trapped. His heart wasn't in it. He wanted to choose his own wife, someone he could genuinely love. As the days passed, Jabari began avoiding Abba. He still held on to the hope that the elders might reconsider. Naya, unaware of the situation, continued to smile at him across the marketplace, further deepening his internal conflict. Jabari knew that soon he would have to make a choice between duty and the freedom to follow his heart. As Jabari wrestled with his emotions, the village elders became more persistent. They reminded him of the importance of tradition and how the prosperity of the village depended on him marrying Abba. The fattest woman was believed to bring fertility, abundance, and wealth, a symbol of the village's success. The pressure mounted on Jabari with each passing day. His father, the chief, had lived by this rule, and it was his father's marriage that had brought wealth to the land. Jabari couldn't ignore the weight of the village's expectations. People began whispering about the upcoming marriage, and it seemed as if everyone was waiting for him to honor the tradition. Despite his reservations, he knew he couldn't let the village down, and the pressure to proceed became impossible to resist. Meanwhile, Abba tried to keep her emotions in check. She had always admired Jabari from afar, his quiet strength, his dedication to the village, and his sense of responsibility, but she never imagined that she would be the one chosen to stand beside him. Abba's secret admiration for Jabari was something she kept hidden, even from her closest friends. She was well aware of the way people mocked her weight, but she refused to let it diminish her sense of self-worth. Despite the whispers about her size, Abba was confident in who she was. She had a deep understanding of people and the world around her. But with each passing day, she wondered whether Jabari would ever come to appreciate her as more than just the fattest woman in the village. One afternoon, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him, Jabari decided it was time to face his reality. He approached Abba for the first time since the elder's decree. Abba was tending to a group of children by the river, her laughter filling the air. Jabari was surprised by the warmth and joy in her presence. "Abba," he began awkwardly, "I know we haven't spoken much, but I think we should spend some time together before..." The wedding. Abba smiled softly and agreed, though her heart raced at the thought of being close to him. She didn't expect much from this marriage, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was hope that Jabari might come to see her for more than her appearance. Over the next few weeks, Jabari and Abba spent more time together. Initially, their conversations were formal and awkward, but as they got to know each other, Jabari started to notice things about Abba he hadn't seen before. Abba had a sharp wit, and her sense of humor often left him chuckling. She had an innate ability to understand people and offer them comfort with just a few words. Jabari was surprised by how comfortable he felt around her. He hadn't expected to enjoy her company so much. Slowly, his perspective on Abba began to shift. He still struggled with the idea of marrying someone based on tradition, but Abba was becoming more than just the fattest woman in the village to him. As Jabari spent more time with Abba, he began to see a different side of Nia, the woman he had once believed to be the perfect match. Nia, who had always seemed graceful and kind, began to show signs of selfishness. She would complain about the most trivial things and treated those around her, including Jabari, with a sense of entitlement. One day, Nia approached Jabari in the marketplace. "Why are you wasting your time with Abba?" she sneered. "You could do so much better." Jabari was taken aback by her cruelty. For the first time, he realized that Nia's beauty was only skin deep. Her true nature was shallow, and she lacked the warmth and wisdom that Abba carried so naturally. Jabari continued spending time with Abba, and their relationship deepened into a genuine friendship. Abba, who had always been comfortable in her own skin, remained kind and open, despite the pressure of the approaching wedding. She didn't push Jabari to love her, but instead, let their connection grow naturally. Jabari found himself laughing more in Abba's company. They would talk late into the night, sharing stories about their childhood and dreams for the future. Abba's wisdom and intelligence shone through, and Jabari began to see her as more than just the woman he was destined to marry. She had become his friend, his confidant, and he started to wonder if perhaps there was more to their bond than just tradition. As the wedding day approached, Jabari's feelings for Abba continued to evolve. He no longer saw her as just the fattest woman in the village. Abba had become someone he admired for her strength, kindness, and intelligence. Her size, once the focus of his concerns, had faded into the background as he realized that what truly mattered was her heart. Jabari found himself thinking less about Nia and more about Abba. He still felt the weight of tradition pressing down on him, but now, the idea of marrying Abba didn't feel like a burden. Instead, it felt like an opportunity to share his life with someone who truly understood him. The village buzzed with excitement as preparations for the wedding began. It was not just any wedding. It was the marriage of the next chief, a significant event that would bring the entire community together. Jabari's family, the elders, and villagers all worked tirelessly to ensure the ceremony would be grand and fitting for the future leader. Abba, too, was caught up in the whirlwind of preparations. Though she was nervous, she handled it with her usual grace. She knew that the marriage meant more to the village than just love. It symbolized the future prosperity of their people. However, deep down, she couldn't help but hope that Jabari's feelings for her had changed as much as hers had for him. Despite the growing bond between them, Jabari still had moments of doubt. The night before the wedding, he sat by the river, staring at the moonlit water. He thought about the life he had imagined with Nia, the expectations he had placed on himself, and the path that lay ahead with Abba. Could he truly love Abba, or was he simply following tradition? The weight of responsibility for his people pressed down on him. He knew that marrying Abba was the right thing to do for the village, but now, more than ever, he wanted to marry her for the right reasons. He didn't just want to fulfill a tradition. He wanted to find happiness with the woman who had captured his heart. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, and the village was filled with joy and anticipation. Jabari, dressed in ceremonial robes, stood tall beside the elders. He felt a mixture of nerves and excitement as he waited for Abba. When she appeared, draped in a flowing, richly adorned gown, the village gasped in admiration. Abba looked radiant, her confidence shining through. As she approached Jabari, their eyes met, and in that moment, Jabari knew his decision was the right one. Abba was not just the fattest woman in the village, she was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. The ceremony was beautiful, and as the village cheered, Jabari and Abba exchanged vows, sealing their union. After the wedding, Jabari and Abba settled into their new roles as leaders of the village. Abba quickly became an essential figure in the village council, offering her wisdom and insight to the people. The villagers, once fixated on her size, began to see her as a leader in her own right, someone who cared deeply for their well-being and future. Jabari, too, thrived in his new role. He felt more connected to his people and more grounded in his leadership. With Abba by his side, he knew he had made the right choice, not just for the village, but for himself. Together, they formed a partnership built on mutual respect, love, and a shared commitment to their people. As Jabari and Abba flourished in their new roles, Nia found herself increasingly isolated. The villagers, once enamored by her beauty, began to see through her shallow nature. She had always believed that her appearance would guarantee her a life of privilege, but now she realized that true beauty was found in character, not in looks. Nia's jealousy grew as she watched Jabari and Abba's relationship blossom. She had once thought that Jabari would choose her, but now she could see that she had lost him, not because of tradition, but because of her own selfishness. Nia left the village quietly, no longer the center of attention she had once been. As the seasons passed, Jabari and Abba's bond deepened. They spent their days working side by side, making decisions for the village, and ensuring that everyone thrived. In the evenings, they would sit together under the stars, sharing stories and laughter. Jabari realized that he had found something far more precious than physical beauty. He had found a partner who understood him, supported him, and loved him for who he was. Abba, too, was filled with joy. The marriage that had begun as an obligation had turned into something beautiful. She no longer worried about the whispers regarding her size, for she knew that she was loved for who she was. Jabari had chosen her, not just because of tradition, but because he saw her true worth. Under Jabari and Abba's leadership, the village prospered. The crops were bountiful, the people were content, and the village's sense of unity grew stronger. The elders, who had once been so focused on tradition, began to see the true value of a leader who chose his partner based on love and respect. Abba's influence was undeniable. Her intelligence and kindness had won over even her harshest critics, and she became a beloved figure in the village. Together, Jabari and Abba proved that true prosperity came not from superficial traditions, but from unity, wisdom, and love. As the years passed, Jabari and Abba's love story became the stuff of legend. The village no longer focused on physical appearances when choosing their leaders, but on the strength of character and the ability to lead with compassion and understanding. Jabari and Abba's marriage had not only brought prosperity to the village, but it had also changed the way people thought about love and beauty. Jabari often reflected on the journey that had brought him to Abba. He had once thought that tradition would bind him to a loveless marriage, but instead, he had found a love that was deeper and more fulfilling than he had ever imagined. Abba had taught him that true beauty lay within, and together, they left a legacy of love, wisdom, and prosperity for future generations to follow. I hope you all have enjoyed this tale. Subscribe for more amazing tales. Thank you.